And we're live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of Mind, Money and Marketing. And today we're joined by a superstar, a social media superstar. I'm not even going to begin to list the amount of publications and places that this lady has been nominated, the top 10, top 20, top 50 most influential social media people on the web today. Plus her website has been voted #1 on the social media blogs online. Ladies and gentlemen, it is none other than the most amazing, lovely Kim Garst. Welcome,
That
Kim.
was an amazing intro.
How are you doing, Kim? It's 5 o'clock where you are today, is that correct?
It is, yes. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it has been a full day. How about you?
It's 4 o'clock in the morning where I am. It's very unfortunate, the only time that I can get to speak to people in the US because the time zones are so crazy between us. So
Right.
yeah, unfortunately I have to be an early riser in this game.
Wow. Well, I'm honored that you got up at 4 a.m. or before, actually, to speak to me today. That's awesome.
Kim, oh gosh, I'm so excited to speak to you because I just have so many questions. Wowee! I mean, you know, just to start with, what a presence you have online. I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal. You've just got hundreds of thousands of fans and followers, and it just blows my mind the presence that the sheer physical presence that you have on Twitter, on Facebook. You're always there, you're always posting, you're always commenting, you're always chatting, you're always networking. Where do you find the time?
Oh goodness. Well, I can't claim that I do it all on my own. I do have a great team. Usually the engagement piece is me. You know, I take my voice very seriously. So, you know, when I'm responding on Twitter or Facebook, usually it is me. If it's not me, my team will, you know, let you know it's them. But content and things of that nature, I have to give them kudos because they do help me create content, which I don't know. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be able to keep track of it all.
No, gosh, it's difficult. We're going to talk a little bit about actually managing social media presence as we go through, but let's go back to the beginning, if that's all right, Kim. I like to get a little bit down and personal on these interviews, and I noticed that your career started many years ago, sort of way before social media even kind of came into fruition. You were wanting to go more into politics and law, I believe, was like the very, very early days, and then obviously your son was born, and the road took a turn. So how is social media and what you're doing today similar to the political world?
Well, I don't know that it's necessarily similar, although some of those politicians need to hire me to help them get their message out. But no, I won't go there so much. But my life did take a twist. You know, when my son was born, I had a whole different plan in mind for myself, and I don't regret it for a minute that I, you know, it did take a turn. It was, you know, one of those things that life happens, and you know, usually, not always, but in this case, it was certainly a blessing in disguise in many ways. Obviously, we had our first son. He was an incredible blessing to us. He's 22 now. Serving in the military, so we're very proud of him. But I went on to build out a business online, and I laugh and tell people I've been doing social media before it was called social media. You know, back in the day when, you know, the internet was just kind of really getting started from a business perspective. I spent a lot of time in AOL chat rooms, like the business chat rooms, B2B boards. You know, I would try to interact and engage with people in both of those locations to try to find my ideal client. So, you know, the concept of interacting and building relationships online, I've been doing that for years. And so when social media came along, it was just a natural progression for me, honestly. The concept of I'd already been doing exactly what social media, I mean, social media as a whole has made it easier to connect and leverage the relationships in your voice, but it is definitely not new to me, and the concept of it.
So in the early days, when you were building your business before kind of the internet became what it is today, that was very forward thinking of you to be looking for clients and looking for business online. What was the thought process? What made you kind of sort of see that far ahead, really, and see the way that the internet was going?
Well, when I started, there were no resources, like there are today. I say today that we have information overload. There's almost too many resources today because people don't know who to listen to, who to tune into, and they're distracted a lot by shiny objects and who has the latest and greatest and that kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of distraction in the information today. And then back then, though, there was no information. I mean, I am totally self-taught. And I struggled big time, lack of information. I couldn't even cut and paste when I started. So, people, when I tell people that today, that's just like, what? Was she stupid or what? But, back 20 years ago, the concept of cut and paste was not readily available. I mean, it wasn't something we just knew or could pick up. So it was just a process of, teaching myself, and I started in design, and, it wasn't so much that I had a forward thought that, as I look at it now, it was forward thinking, but at the time I was just searching for new clients, and where could I find those clients? So it wasn't like I had this revolutionary concept of, this is going to work. It was more of a trial and error and just, going with what actually worked for me and doing more of it. And that's kind of the way it is today too. You figure out what works for you, and then you do more of it. But back then I didn't really think of myself as just getting something or being a forward thinker. It just was a process, an evolution of my business.
Yeah, okay. And obviously Boom, your brand Boom, has really kind of exploded exploded onto the internet over the last year, and it was only actually formed in August 2012, so it's quite a new brand. And I mean, forgive me, Kim. I mean, I've only been on Facebook now for August 2010. I started playing around with Facebook. So you and your company have obviously been doing what you're doing for quite a long time, but it almost feels like with Boom, there's been this kind of meteoric rise over the last year. So how important has Boom been to your brand and building your business over the last year?
Well, the interesting part is that we had the advantage of already having my personal brand built out. So we leveraged my personal brand to, gain more exposure for the company, and as that continued to build out, we just leveraged my personal brand, my reputation that I had previously, and that helped tremendously to get the growth of the company off the ground. It did explode in more ways than we really anticipated. And in some ways, not always good ways. You're always, you kind of get so wrapped up in the explosion sometimes that, you get away from, core things just simply by the byproduct of all the fluff that goes with, the growth. So it's been fun. It's been a huge learning experience for me. I've built 4 successful businesses online now, and this one has been, again, the most explosive because I had the availability of social media, and I never had that piece before. So, social, you just cannot. I can't even begin to tell people how impactful it can be to your business if you use it correctly.
So moving on to, I mean, you just said then about the having the benefit of your personal brand to launch the business. So talking about personal branding and being a public figure, I find it really interesting on social media that the consensus is that the more of a public figure you are, the more you're going to build these personal relationships and get to know people, and therefore the more success you're going to have. And what's your thoughts on that kind of public figure versus brand? Because if we look at Boom, for instance, it's very much about you. You know, the whole thing, Boom is the company, but it's Kim Garst is the public figure. But then as an example to that, which I find interesting, you've got something like the Social Media Examiner, for instance, where it really is the Social Media Examiner. And even though we all kind of know Mike Stelzner's behind it, he's not a major public figure. He doesn't have, you know, his own page or anything like that. So what's your kind of view on public figure versus brand, and how important do you feel being a public figure is to your brand?
Well, I'm personally a big proponent of a personal brand. For example, and I'll just throw out that same, I'll use that same example that you just used. You know, you're right. Everybody, all of us in the space recognize that Mike Stelzner is the owner and creator of Social Media Examiner. But people who are not in this, you know, in our space, for lack of a better way of describing it, have no clue probably who Mike is. So, you know, the opportunities that might come his way might not be as readily available as if he was literally the face of the company. And that's one of the things that we have found through this process of starting, you know, leveraging my personal brand against the brand of the company. Because people still look to me. People want to connect with people, I think, versus a logo or a company name. They want to know who's behind that company. And, you know, so, you know, opportunities to speak and, you know, interview requests and, you know, things that are public, you know, they don't go to the company, they come to me. If that makes a difference, if that kind of makes sense. So I guess my point is that I think there is a ton of value in having a personal brand, even if you work for a major company or a major brand. I'll give you another example. Ted Rubin worked for Collective Bias for, I don't know, several years. And yet he had a large personal brand that they leveraged to, you know, generate more interest in their business, Collective Bias. So I think again, that's another great example of a personal brand that people connected on and, you know, was a voice for the culture that Collective Bias had. And, you know, it created a lot of buzz and a lot of, you know, speaking opportunities and publicity on behalf of both TED and Collective Bias. So I think there is a lot to be said for a personal brand.
There's a lot of people out there, I think, who get very scared, who are very, you know, worried about putting themselves out there and kind of becoming the face of their company. You know, I saw a video of yours a little while ago where you were discussing kind of moving beyond that fear. What are your tips maybe for people who are a little bit paralyzed by their own self-doubt?
Well, it's interesting you say that because I went through that. I went through that not only from the standpoint of my own personal fears, but my husband is retired from the military, and he's just totally weirded out that I'm so out there, you know, from a security standpoint and all that kind of stuff. So there's two sides of it that I'm constantly battling. Finding your authentic voice when you're getting started and getting out there and just being you and not trying to be someone else is a struggle when you're first getting started and letting yourself be out there and be in the face of your company. But I think if you can just remember that you don't have to be somebody else. People are going to be okay and connect with whoever you are versus you trying to project an image that you think they want to connect with. So my biggest probably recommendation would be, you know, don't focus on what you think your ideal client's looking for in you. Just be you, and, you know, don't be afraid of what that looks like. Because, you know, so many of us, you know, well, you know, my hair doesn't look good, or my nose is shiny, or, you know, there's lots of things that we get hung up on. Or, I had somebody tell me the other day that they didn't think they could be successful because they were not attractive enough. And so I'm
Wow.
like, you can be. There's people that are boring. There's people that are, not attractive. There's all kinds of people that have personal brands that are successful. So just embrace who you are and be okay with it. And not worry and not stress that people won't connect with you, because I think if you are who you are, you will attract your ideal client.
There's nobody more unique than you, is there? People are always looking for that unique
Yeah.
angle, and there's nobody more unique than you.
Exactly. Exactly. You don't have to try to be something else. Just be you.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
notice on your Facebook page and on your Twitter account, actually, you do post quite a lot of personal things. You just talk about general stuff that you're doing during the day, or people you're going to meet, or just funny little things that you find. How important do you think that is for people to kind of see the person, even behind the public figure, if you like? Because even as a public persona, we will probably kind of put a little bit of a wall out there. But how important is that of posting that real kind of personal stuff so people get to know the real you?
Personally, I think it's very important, and obviously I have a personal brand. We have Boom Social, which is tied very closely to my personal brand. But even corporations, massive brands, I think that personal piece is very important. My I hate I don't know if it's not an opinion, well, it is an opinion, but it's kind of a stance that I take with all of my clients, is that people will connect with you on a personal level before they're going to connect with you on a business level. That might be humor, that might be, your kids' sports, it might be, sharing an opinion, asking a question, lots of ways that you can engage and with your ideal client or your ideal prospect. But I think you have to embrace a number of different ways to get their attention, and it's not leading with your business or a push marketing technique. So I'm a big proponent of the personal pieces. What does your ideal client care about outside of what you're pushing? What you're marketing, what you're selling. And if you can connect with them on those things, then you have an opportunity to create a sale at a future point in time.
You post a lot as well on your Facebook page, don't you? I noticed that there's, I mean, you go through all the blogs and all the questions and answers and things like that. And how often should I post is always a very popular question. And you get anywhere from, post one quality post a day to post 3 or 4, and obviously the real answer, I suppose, is to test your market. But I noticed that your posts on Facebook there's a lot of them through the day. There might be sometimes 6, 7 posts during the day. Is that something you tested? What's your thought process behind that?
Well, I'm a firm believer that social media is not a one-size-fits-all. What might work for me might not work for someone else. Some people do. I've heard some social media, quote unquote, I hate the term expert because I don't think any of us are really experts, because I think there's a level of authority and knowledge for sure. But I have heard some say, don't post more than, once or twice a day. And that's all well and good if that's what your audience is looking for. On Facebook, though, in particular, and the reason that I'm so active on Facebook is because Facebook is basically determining what content your audience or your fan base is seeing, and in a couple of different ways. They have their algorithm and whatever it is that however it works. We won't go into all of the details of how that works. But if you're posting once a day and 1 out of 6 of your fans is seeing that content, then you're really narrowing your chances to connect with your fan base. Versus if you're posting 4 to 5 times a day, you're now increasing your chances of being seen by your fan base 5 to 6 times over the once a day concept. So I think it does need to be tested. I'm also a big proponent of that. My real rule of thumb, I have a content plan for my Facebook page, and I encourage everyone to have, a content plan, whether it's visual, whether it's, whatever your structure is, and then test it. If I'm getting engagement on my content and I'm not getting a lot of negative pushback, people aren't deciding to leave as a fan or, giving me negative feedback on my post, then I just keep and I found a kind of a magic spot for myself. And I do post on average probably 7 to 8 times a day, sometimes a little bit more if something, pops up that, I want to put out there.
So it's great that you just raised the notion of a content plan. I was going to ask you actually, have you got some lovely little tips for us on content, on strategizing your content, on obviously managing your content across the platforms, and building your presence online? Have you got any lovely little tips that you can give us for creating a content strategy?
I actually do, and one of the things that I have kind of incorporated into my strategy across the board, whether it's on Pinterest or whether it's on Facebook or whether it's on Twitter, is the concept that my ideal client is interested in more than just my business and what I can share and teach with them or teach to them. So I have a strategy that's includes several things. I include my my blog post, my content, so that I can get that shared. I do a lot of inspiration because personally, the mindset piece I think for any business owner is huge. And I do humor because a lot of people love humor and they connect and they share it. It's again a connection point for me. There's lots of different categories, and that's what I call them. I call them buckets that I put different things in, whether it's humor or tips. I have a tips series that I run. I give a lot of social media tips on both Facebook and Twitter. So it depends on what your ideal client is interested in, and then how can you give value back to that prospect or that client that you have. So, whether it's a tip series, I'm a big, I think any business owner can have a tip series where they're giving value-based information back to their audience. I think that pretty much any business owner, any type of business can probably do that. Sharing your content, the humor piece, inspiration if it fits. There's just so many ways that you can connect, but again, like I say, categorize them, put them in buckets, and then make your business or make your content plan around those categories. And you will find that it's so much easier to share content. Let's say, for example, you're going to give 2 business tips a day. Now all you have to come up with is, okay, sit down, do your content plan and say, okay, 2 business tips, 1 humor, here's my blog post, and before you know it, you have your content scheduled out for the day.
Yeah, many people get intimidated by the amount of platforms out there, Kim. Do you think it's important for a business to be everywhere, or should people really be picking 1 or 2 of the platforms that they feel they're going to get the most leverage from?
I don't think they need to be everywhere. I do think they need to be where their ideal client is and where they have time and resources to build out that platform. If that's 1, if that's 2, that's fine. Don't stress over the fact that you don't have time or resources to support, 5 platforms. If it's, in my opinion, it's so much better to do 1 or 2 well than to try to be in, all places and do none of them well. So if you don't have the time or the resources to devote to, 6 platforms, it's okay, guys. It really is. It's okay. Focus on picking maybe 1 or 2 platforms where your ideal client is, and then just do them very well. And as you get more time and more results, then you can spread your wings a little bit more.
And bearing in mind that people do struggle with time, I mean, it's social media is such a big time resource.
Yes.
From a small business owner's point of view, should they be focused more on sort of posting lots and lots of content, Kim, or should they be focused more on networking and commenting and going out and talking to other people? Because that's a real juggle, that, isn't it? Trying to think, well, I need to post some content there, I need to go and network with people there, and of course the ideal is kind of a bit of a balance. But how important is that side as well, that networking and actually commenting and talking to other people in your industry, Kim?
Well, I think that you need to have a balance. I mean, you're right. That's the best alternative across the board, is to find that balance. But when you're first getting started, it can be a struggle to do the content and okay, I need to connect with influencers, and I got to do this and I got to do that. And your list, before you know it, becomes so big and so overwhelming that you don't get any of it done. So my suggestion would be I'm a big proponent of bite-sizing things, making a small list and getting those things done. And if that's posting twice a day on Facebook and connecting with two people two influencers and trying to network with people, versus posting, 10 times on Facebook and getting no networking done. So find some balance. And get it to a place where you can manage it. Because, again, that list gets so big when you first get started, because everybody's like, well, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that 3 times, and you got to do this 5 times. And before you know it, your day's sucked up, and you followed a lot of rabbit holes or rabbit trails along the way. So pick 2 or 3 things that you really want to excel at, and then just focus there. And then, again, that kind of goes back to even your content. Pick a couple of things and decide, okay, I'm going to do this very well, do those very well, and as you get to a comfort level with those things, then branch out and take on one more thing. So bite-size it, or if you try to take it all on, you just won't get it done.
No, great advice. Great advice. I'm a prime example of somebody who wants to try and do everything all at once, and I take on loads, and then you end up actually not doing anything that well. So it's much better to focus on one thing and just become a master of that, isn't it? Yeah. I'm just looking at my notes here, Kim, because I was just writing down that you said something very interesting recently in an interview you did. You were actually interviewing Jay Baer about his book, Utility. And one of the comments you made to him was that on social media, we should be in a place where we're giving lots and lots of value without really expecting too much in return. And I found that a really interesting comment, because I thought to myself about a lot of the businesses and people that will be going on to social media, and the whole reason they're there is really just to get clients, just to get business, just to find leads and generate leads. So where they're coming from, even beginning to build a presence, is essentially an expectation of trying to get customers. Yet I can totally understand where you're coming from with this whole kind of giving value without essentially expecting anything. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that for me, and just go through how to translate that into a kind of a business thought?
Sure, absolutely. Basically, my concept as it relates to social media is that there's so much competition today that you have to stand out in some way. And when you get started on social media, every client that we've ever had says to us, when we ask them what they want from social media, every one of them essentially says more revenue, more money, more sales, more leads. You're right, that's what people want from social media. But the reality is that it's not an immediate buy-in. In other words, you can't plop down in social media and get immediate results. You just can't. So how do you plop down and get results long term? And it is a long-term game. You do have to get started. You do have to share value. And I'm a big, like I said to Jay, I'm a big proponent of, giving value, being useful without the expectation of a reward. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't expect to be rewarded, or that I don't think that I will be. I absolutely think I will be. Will it be everybody that I provide value to? No. but there will be people. The reason you give value to your audience and to your ideal client, ideal prospect, is so that when they need you, you will come top of mind. You've been so useful, you have been so helpful for free, that when they need to purchase from you or purchase what your solution, whatever your solution is to their problem, then you are going to come top of mind for that person. And this works. I have seen this work. It works for me. That's how I build. My whole business is structured around this concept of, giving value, being there, and being top of mind for people when they need a resource, so that I can, create sales for my business. And this has worked not only in my business, but any of the corporate clients, any small business owners that we've worked with that will embrace this. Not all will, incidentally, but if they will embrace this, then it works. Because today people have choices, and they know it. And if you don't step into that same mentality, then you're kind of competing with in a place that you can't be competitive, essentially.
Actually, it's great that you just said that, because my next question was going to be, so Kim, tell us, what do you really think the secret to business success on social media is? But I think you just said it, didn't you? It's that whole giving, that being out there, being useful and giving value without expectation of immediate reward.
Yes, I think that is the critical. If you had to sum it up in just one thing, I think that is a critical piece. And I'll just add one other thing to that. You have to talk to people. You can't just be a broadcaster and it's great to say, okay, well, wow, I'm sharing 50 blog posts a day, and this is going to be great information for my audience. If you never step into a conversation with people on social media, you're not going to get nearly as much return on your social media presence as if you do actually have a conversation, respond to people, engage with people. That's where the true gold is on social media, is building out those relationships and just letting people know that you acknowledge that they have a voice too.
Kim, I would just love you to just elaborate a little bit more, just before we begin to close down the interview, just on that point about having a voice. I know we briefly touched on it earlier in the interview, but I just know that so many people get so nervous about talking to people and being out there and being themselves. And one of the reasons they get nervous is this kind of false feeling that they're going to get shot down in flames the minute they come out and say something that's on their mind. And that, because there's a lot of trolls online, and there's an awful lot of negativity. I mean, I'm not a big ranter myself. I tend to rant to my partner and kind of stay away from social media, even though sometimes I really want to have a good rant and say, for goodness sake, stop ranting or something. But there's an awful lot of, I see so many negative, this annoys me, this, and and negative this and negative that, and I know that people are like, oh, I'm not sure I want to get caught up in that, and what happens if that comes upon me. What are your messages of reassurance?
Well, I don't rant often myself, but every once in a while I do. I put something out there, and that just usually, if I put something out that's it is, in my opinion, for a higher cause. In other words, like if it's a bad business experience, or with a brand, or whatever. But as it relates to just being you and knowing what you can say and what you should say on social media, I am always telling people, how would you talk to somebody if you were standing directly in front of them? How would you engage with people if you're just talking in a group, or or if you're one-on-one with somebody? So you've got to remember that social media is just that. It's a conversation. Yes, you don't have somebody standing right in front of you usually at the time that you type out your post, but it's just a normal tone of voice. How would you say it if you were going to say it to your mother or to your friend or, to a coworker? And just leverage that normal tone of voice and just be you. With that said, sometimes you will get the negative pushback. It's interesting to me, though, that as you build relationships online, you won't have to worry about taking up for you. Other people will do it for you. So once you start to build relationships and connect with people and they get a sense for who you are and your personality and your heart, then, if you do step into a mud pile, for lack of a better way of describing it, then you can emerge from it simply because people will lift you up and support you in whatever decision, right, wrong, or indifferent. If you say something that, even if they don't agree with what you say, they will still say that. They'll still say, well, without it getting way ugly. I have had a couple of instances where, something was misinterpreted or, it didn't come out exactly like I meant it. And that's going to happen. That happens in life, right? You can say something to a friend and they misinterpret the way you say it or however you said it. So those types of things are going to happen, but don't back off of it. Don't feel like you can't be who you are and that you can't take stances if you are passionate about feeling that way. Or if, in my case, I recently, shared a business, my son had gone to get an oil change, and they had charged him an exorbitant amount of money. And it wasn't the money, for me, it was about the social awareness and letting people know that this company was taking advantage of the local student body, because they didn't know any different. So, there are instances where in my opinion, you have a social obligation to share, negative things and good things. It doesn't necessarily have to be the bad. For example, today I shared that Home Depot is supporting our troops by sending, a ton of great stuff to the boys over there. So, or to our soldiers. So, there's good and bad that you can leverage the message that you want to send. With that said, the message that you send and that you share the majority of the time should be very positive and be very focused on the culture and your brand that you want to project. And occasionally there's going to be instances where it could be, you're highlighting another business or you're, from a positive standpoint or a negative. But be you, stand true to what you're passionate about, and people will step up to that. And those that don't aren't your ideal client anyway.
What a beautiful answer. I absolutely love that. I think people seem to forget that when they go on, social media is just an extension of a conversation that you'd be having anyway in life. I think it's weird how people kind of think as soon as they're on Facebook or, Twitter or something that there's somebody different, that there's somebody completely different from who they are in normal life. It's a really kind of weird concept of social media.
Just be you.
Anyway, okay. Sorry, go on, Kim. There was a bit of a lag there. Say that again.
I said, just be you.
Absolutely. Just be you. Just be you. That's our tagline for today. Kim, before we go, I always like to ask my guests something that they have experienced in their life, whether it's been a book that they've read, a quote they read at some point, a film they've watched, a person they've followed, but something through their life that's stuck in their mind that's been a real inspiration to them that they can perhaps share with the audience, something the audience perhaps can go and watch or read or something to glean a little bit of something that inspired you along the way. Does anything kind of, I'm sure there's loads of stuff that you've read and seen and watched, but is there anything that kind of comes to mind that particularly sticks out in your head as something that was quite inspirational through your career?
Well, almost daily, and this isn't necessarily a book, although it's definitely came from a book. But I have a personal quote. It's just a Bible verse, actually, that basically says something to the effect that I can do all things through He who strengthens me, and that is my inspiration almost on a daily basis. That I know I can do it. So many people struggle with fears and the fact that they're possible, and so I just draw on that. That's kind of my inner strength, that I know I can do all things through Him who strengthens me, and that's something that I like I say, it's my strength on a daily basis.
That's wonderful, Kim. Have you got any other kind of messages or sort of inspirational kind of messages really for the people watching who are kind of starting out in social media, who are really looking to try and build their online presence, build their brand, generate more leads, and become even kind of half the superstar that you are on social media? Have you got any any nuggets of wisdom for those people before we go today?
I think it really boils down to just knowing that you can build a huge business online today. I'm a firm believer in that. I've built 4 massive businesses, and when I started many years ago, over 20 years ago, I didn't know how possible I was. And so I guess my big message to all of you guys that are just getting started: believe in yourself, take action, and know that you're possible, because you are. We all have huge possibilities inside of ourselves. Most of us, most people that I encounter on a daily basis don't step into their potential, and I don't even feel like I've gotten to my potential. So I guess that's my big message to you: is know that you have huge possibilities in you, and let them shine, let them out.
I want to burst into song now. Let it shine. Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
like
you can connect. Let it shine. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you can connect with Kim on Facebook. You'll be watching this video on a blog post. If you're watching it on YouTube, then just go to the blog, jobarnesonline.com, for all the links. All the links will be below this video, and they will be to Kim's Facebook page, so you can connect with Kim on Facebook, to Kim's website, so you can go and check out Kim's training and fantastic blog posts that she shares on her blog. So you can go and find that, and her Twitter account as well. So ways to connect with Kim will all be below this video, but of course, if you're listening to this on a podcast as well, just head to kimgarst.com, kimgarst.com, G-A-R-S-T, and you will find all of Kim's other connection details on her website to find her across the social networks. And I highly urge you and recommend you to follow Kim, because not only are you going to get some great social media business tips, but without a doubt, every day you're going to get a big old dose of inspiration. I just only have to go to your page to get a nice big nugget of inspiration and say, yes, okay, that's going to be me today. So thanks so much, Kim. It's been lovely to talk to you. Thank you very, very much for your time this morning. What are your plans now after this hangout?
I actually have a training webinar, and let's see, in about an hour.
Fantastic. Hard worker. Another hard worker. Everybody thinks we can all do this on 2 hours a week, but believe me, everybody, it's hard work.
It's hard work. That is one thing we forgot to say.
All right, well,
social media is work.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, because it's 5 o'clock. So if you've got a webinar now, it's like 7 o'clock-ish, going to be your time to do a webinar. So, it never ends. But if you love it, ladies and gentlemen, then it's brilliant. So anyway, Kim, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a fabulous evening, and we'll see you around and about on Facebook and Twitter.
Okay. Thank you, Joanne.